Go for it.
All right, and we are recording. Okay, welcome to the podcast. Oh wait, no, we got to say the ZBrush podcast. That's the official thing.
You could, but
welcome to the ZBrush podcast number 2. This podcast is dedicated to all the amazing people who attended and tuned into the live stream of the ZBrush Summit. We thank you guys so much for your contributions and support to the ZBrush community, as well as the entire Pixologic team that isn't in this podcast. Without all of everybody's hard work, this event wouldn't have been successful. We don't normally do these sort of podcasts as a company in terms of speaking about our experiences at the summit. So we thought this would be a good time to share our feelings, our experiences. So I've got Paul Gabry sitting here across from me, as well as Michael Nisbet, Kyle Janstone, Kingsley Wong, who's filming behind me right now. Doesn't want to be a part of the podcast.
behind the scenes forever.
He's not only camera shy, he's mic shy.
Mike Shy.
Won't even get on the mic.
No, everyone's here in spirit though.
Drop some bars.
He does make us
Kingsley.
look good, though. He makes us look real good.
And Joseph Druss is in the computer on Skype.
Joseph Russ is like
Is he
90% online.
Yeah.
He should be. Skype him in.
He's in the Tron world. He's writing light cycles and modifying code.
Yes.
Before we get going too far into this, I do want to send a special thanks as well to the sponsors for the summit. I'm going to go through a big list here. We had a ton of people involved in helping us make this event successful. That includes Wacom, 3D for Medical, 3D Total, Anatomy Tools, ArtStation, Bethesda, CTN, Deep in the Heart Art Foundry, Formlabs, Funko, the Gnomon School of Visual Effects, Good Smile, Luxion, the makers of Keyshot, Kotobukiya, Mold 3D. The list is going on. Ono, as well as Prototype Studios, Max Factory, and Sprint Ray. Did I miss anybody? That's everybody, right?
You got everybody.
It's a pretty big list. A lot of these sponsors, we gave away a ton of prizes at the event.
Over $40,000 worth.
That's insane.
Prizes and giveaways is what we had.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we just have I think we have such a strong passion for the event. Just as, really more so as artists than anything else. We care about this. It's not as much about selling ZBrush as it is about making something that's good for the community.
Yeah, especially after this year, I got a real sense of the community aspect of this. I mean, it's always been that way, but
Yeah.
I can't even count the number of artists that came up to me, and I saw them coming up to everybody, thanking us that we just, not to pat ourselves on the back, that's not what I'm doing, but, it's like now we have a place for 3D artists to hang out and meet each other and
It's exactly
admire
it's just,
each other's work.
It's doing what we wanted from the beginning. I think is developing that sort of circle where this is a place for people to come to.
Well, we have three
commune.
pillars. We have 3 pillars to the summit, and I think that's the most important thing that we're all doing is we want to inspire people, we want people to discover things, and then we want the community to connect with each other. And that's
the tagline, right?
Yeah, that's it.
That's the official tagline.
It
Tying in the
always
marketing.
has been.
I like
Inspire, discover, and connect. It's really the important things in the ground of where we're coming with the summit and what we're trying to do, and show people that there is this amazing community out there, and there's people using ZBrush in a very different, unique way, and bringing everyone together and just have a good time and really see some artwork that can inspire you.
Absolutely.
So
it's a platform for us to. Outside of that, it is a platform for us to show off the stuff that we were going to be making or are working on, which we did touch on at the summit. You and Joseph did a presentation on ZBrush 4R8, which does not have an official release date. We're still in development, have been in development for a while, and we're still working on the final date for that. But we did announce that the ZBrush Core is coming out October 14th, and that's going to be packaged with this Intuos that we have actually sitting in front of us. Sweet little dragon in there.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's a ZBrush sculpt.
ZBrush sculpt. It's just it's a place where we can present as well as sort of inspire others, which I think is what we all constantly need is inspiration, especially as 3D artists. And it's a fast-paced industry, and things are changing all the time. So I think there was a real need for this event. And I did want to touch on this too, Paul. You probably don't want to take credit for this, but you were the first person to really push. This was your baby. at the very beginning of the first
That's
summit.
right.
And you had been pushing to make this a thing long before that.
Paul invented the summit.
No, I didn't invent it,
but I think I'm
it was
kind of
it was my thing that I really wanted to push and for us to do, instead of doing maybe multiple events a year, or even to the point where SIGGRAPH we don't do anymore. Mm-hmm. I just felt we could do more as a team, and we could do more together, and have an event that's really just centered around the ZBrush world. That because of our amazing community, I know they would just eat it up and want to be a part of it. So it's definitely something that I wanted to do for years.
Yeah. Well, and that's when I first started here at Pixologic it was around the time, Paul, you had been doing this kind of alone. I think you were going around. I mean, in LA we have a bubble of tons of trade shows. We're very fortunate in that sense in the artist community, but we were bouncing around to, we'd go to CTN, we'd get a booth. I think before that you were doing a table. And then it expanded to a full booth.
Yeah, we did the very first year there. We cut a sponsor, and I went in and helped out with that. And then the second year, we just had a table, because those were artists, and those are a lot of people that draw, or there were sculptors there too. There was people with clay on there, and they have a lot of that there. So we were doing that one. We were doing SIGGRAPH. I was traveling doing user group meetings, so I wouldn't just do them locally. I was trying to do them in other cities around the country.
Right. You were doing some was it London or?
I did one in London. Yeah, we've done one in London, Seattle, Vancouver.
Right. And Tama in the European side, he's doing a lot of those.
Yeah, he would do those events.
He goes to Japan. He's been to, him and Jaime have also been to Japan a couple times now.
Yes.
Shout out Japan.
Well, we're still Wonderfest. Wonderfest is now a conference we do. There's 2 of them a year, and we're doing both. And we'll have a even bigger booth this year for the one that's coming up.
Yeah, Japan's really a huge growing community for us.
Yeah, there's still a lot of traditional work being done in that community there, and it's amazing work that they do with their hands, and they're just really now starting to get into something like ZBrush and seeing what they can do with it, especially with the advancements in 3D printing.
Yeah,
right. They can really see what can be done.
Amazing. Yeah. The figurines, the collectible industry, really big over there, huh?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, it's a massive community, and the work they do is amazing. Just look, if you take a Gundam, you buy off a model kit. There's artists there in Japan that are paid just to paint, right, the model kit to their own specification, and they're getting paid to do this. Yeah, polypaint
in feature trap,
right? So it's really cool to see what they do with it and how they go. So I can see such amazing work already coming out, especially on the ZBrush Central Japan site.
Well, and I think that getting back to the sort of like I'm kind of trying to get into your head, but we bounced around to all those things, and when I started, you had a table, right? And you had people doing presentations, and in my mind it was like we needed to capture this stuff and start having more of a presentation for the people that can't be there, because LA is such a small little community, and our community, our ZBrush community, is worldwide. They're all over the place. Mm. So we started capturing, we'd set up cameras, presentations, we cut it together so people could watch these things, and I think from there it just sort of expanded into all these other things. And for me, the 3D community, the 3D art community in general, I look at it as it's another bubble of you have actors, you have directors, you have all these artist communities, but the 3D community is like sort of in its own like development stage where we don't really have a place to go, or we haven't had a place to go. A lot of it is going to forums, and you would have communities on there. Like for us, it was ZBrush Central. But there's tons of other ones out there. But there was no physical place to go, like an E3 for video games or a Comic-Con. And I envision the summit as something that will still develop into something larger, much larger than what we've done. It's taken a lot of work to get to the point that we're at now. But you can see
we're running out of seats, man.
Well, that's the thing, is the turnout for this was physical presence was amazing. We had so many people dedicated to coming all 3 days. Yeah. And on top of it, the online viewership has been steady. I think we grew as far as which countries we're touching and what people are watching. And we're paying attention to those things because we want to expand to those places too. Yeah,
we want to keep growing. And the biggest thing was like what you covered. You were doing cameras and we're recording and we're putting them up on, like, say, our YouTube channel. But then you're, in essence, just watching a video, watch someone present. You lose that connection capability. So it was really important to have and have that interactivity between the artists and the audience, or the artist and the viewer. So that's why also we decided with the summit, look, we want people to be able to ask questions regardless if you're here physically or if you're online. So, that's why we use our Twitter feed to ask questions, and then we try to ask questions where we can, with when they're presenting or when the artists are up, and that's an important part, because I think that makes the event different. You aren't just watching a video online, or you aren't just physically there. There's some kind of, you feel connected more to the event and connected more to the presenters.
Absolutely. It brings you into it. And there's prizes for the people online. So,
yeah.
And we make sure that when we're doing those presentations for the live stream, for me, it was like priority number one, or high on the priority list, of making sure that experience was equally as beneficial to the people viewing online, because there's so many more people tuning in. I mean, not everybody can get the weekend off. I can't travel to LA. And I'm sure that we have hopes to.
Why not?
Why not?
Well, there's a surprising amount of people who did. I was shocked.
Yeah.
We had people coming internationally paying.
Yeah.
What does a flight cost from Australia now? Or whatever, just to show up and hang out. That was awesome. And
we had a lot from all parts of the world this year. Last year we did too. We had quite a few people flying from around the world. But this year, more than ever,
people really made it a point.
So
to
many
be
people
here
that
now.
flew in for the event this year. And that's cool to see.
I think it takes that amount of time for people to really grasp what it is. The first year was
young. It's 3 years
young.
old.
It's only 3 years. And I mean, picture how long
yeah.
Comic-Con was around until it became as big as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was a tiny little thing down in San Diego that
They rented a ballroom in a hotel, and it was just a bunch of guys selling comic books to each other.
when nerd art and comic book stuff was just not cool. It was a small community of people.
It's
but
always been cool.
it's always been cool to us, says the guy
You
with the
are wearing
Superman
a
shirt that
Superman
says I'm
shirt,
kind of
yeah.
a big deal.
I am wearing a Superman t-shirt. That's true.
I will show proof later.
Yeah.
I have a big D on my forehead for dork.
You might want to
It
revise
just grew
that.
in, just natural. It's an evolutionary
You can only
stamp.
see it with the coda ring in the dark with a dark light over my head. It's the only time you can see it. Then I know you're part of the club.
That's how it happens. That's how we.
That's exactly
That's how we tell each other apart.
Yes.
You just bring black lights and you shine a.
Sure. Why not?
Just give a little quick nod. I see you. Well, I mean, I don't know. How do you guys? Because I envision this year in the summer, I think we as a company are inspired by what we see there, and not in the sense that we want to push and sell ZBrush. It's more in the fact that we want to make it better for the people, for our users, because that gives us purpose. Really, it gives us feedback, so that way we want to make more stuff for them. And watching, for me, when I sit there and I'm watching all these presentations, I'm just floored at, we all go through creative slumps where you get a little uninspired, and every time I go to the summit, I watch these pros show off what they're doing in all kinds of industries.
And they make it look easy, which
they do. But there is one thing that is consistent, I think, with the pros, the professionals out there that are doing what they do, and there's a consistency of dedication to it, and there's a love for it, there's a passion, and you see it with every single one of them. And no matter what they're showing, whether it's maybe not your field of interest, if it's not, say animation or whatever, there's things that you can pull from that, just pure inspirational things that you can use to put into your work. So for me, I could watch somebody demoing. I'm not really a hard surface guy. That's never been something that I like to do in my personal artwork, but I watched some of the presentations this last weekend, and it just made me want to try things differently and explore things differently, because I felt comfortable, and they tell their stories of what it was like for them getting started, and there's always sort of it's a hard road to get to that pro level. I think that is something that people can take from that, is just keep pushing, keep working, keep testing yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that translates across different disciplines, not just 3D art, but I come from a musical background, and I've watched countless videos of people talking about their career, and I've gone to countless presentations, and it's the same thing. It all comes down to an undeniable passion for what you do and an unwillingness to let anything get in the way.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to do.
It is.
Building your skills up is one thing, but also having the courage to put everything on the line and not go out and get a quote real job, like mom wants us to, and
Right.
Put it all on the line. You're on the streets if it doesn't work out. So those who have the bravery to dedicate that kind of time and reach that pro level, it's inspiring to everyone. I think even if you're not in that particular industry.
Right. And there's just that one guideline that everybody shows, and when you watch them on camera and you watch them, you see what they're doing. There's a difference between being in a forum and seeing somebody post an image of an amazing piece of artwork and then seeing them on camera talking about those experiences and sort of how they do it. That makes them more relatable. And you come to find that we're all kind of the same. There is no difference between a guy or girl that's just getting started and the person that's sitting at a lead character artist position. They just put in the time and effort.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is really it. It's like everybody starts at a different level. Some people just have a natural knack for this or that, or they struggle extra hard with this. But everyone can actually reach the same level given the time, or the dedication and the work. Yeah,
you kind of have to methodically break down. Some people like to, and a lot of us here at the company, we teach ZBrush as well as put together tutorials in Z Classroom, but teaching somebody how to do some of these things, there's always that foundation aspect where you always start with anatomy, but then sometimes people get too heavy in anatomy and they don't spend enough time just being creative. Yeah. And you watching all these people sort of getting into their heads of how they do it, you can sort of piecemeal different things from different artistic people and sort of come up with your own style, or it gives you the freedom to try something different. Instead of...
I think there was an underlining thing to this year's, not even controlled by us, but it just so happened it came up a lot in the presenters about literally doing the work. Don't look for that quick shortcut. Look for that quick A to Z. Stop trying to jump all over from A to Z, like actually go through A, B, Z, actually do the process yourself by hand and work a little bit, and then you'll discover things on your own.
It's like just sculpt.
Just sculpt.
Do it.
Right. So there was a lot of presenters that actually were like, people were like, whoa, why don't you just do this? And they're like, why? I'm going to do it by hand. Right. And do it that way.
Your own tips and tricks on your own when you start doing the work.
Exactly. Well, that's my MO.
That's the time.
Yeah. Man, a microphone.
Kyle's off in the corner.
Chimed in. We don't know if you heard it though.
Kyle, we can be like band leaders and share them, right? Or our band people, like, I'm the guitarist, you're the bass. Let's go.
Do a duet
over there. That's perfect.
Guys, if you'd like to contribute to our Kickstarter for new microphones, we need more. If you want to hear this podcast,
we need 12 microphones.
But yeah. But
it doesn't work like that.
There is that connection there. Like, that is a really good point. Is that okay for us as a company? Of course, we make a ton of tools that make things easier. We want to make it easier for people to create stuff. But sometimes it's better to just get used to taking the hard road. And this is the masochist in me, where like I choose to just sculpt things by hand and do it. Quick and
tools,
dirty.
Like, again, going back to any industry, I think the tools that make things easier are for people that already know how to do it.
Right.
If you're using the shortcut before you know how to do it manually, whatever it might be,
exactly,
you're cheating yourself.
You're leaving. You'll fall short later
learn.
Down the road. You can fill a gap in that space just by doing a lot of quick, even using rendering to cover up some of your modeling faults or things that aren't quite polished up enough.
Oh yeah.
But if you take the time to, it's like, there's that 90% of a sculpt and then the last 10%, but the last 10% is equally as time demanding as the important. 90%.
And again, going back to the crossover, my musical background, it's like a similar thing. Like, you talking rendering to cover up mistakes. With us, it's often like, man, if I could just master it really good, I just need somebody to master this track and it's going to sound good. It's like, no, it's not. If it sounds like garbage to begin with, you're just going to polish garbage.
Well, there's that.
It looks a little better, but it still would be that much better if it was a good foundation.
Right. There is that term that's floating out there all the time. I use it sometimes in class, and I think I heard it from John Brown down at Noman.
Polishing a turd.
Polishing a turd. Polishing a turd. And it's not in a derogatory way. It just sort of means like don't get, one of the things that I take from these presenters too is that don't sell yourself short by shortcutting things when you can learn the basics and really do a lot with those tools.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught in that because when you start off, you want to be good, you want to be showing your best stuff, but there's no shortcut.
That goes to just any art, period. Yeah, you have those little people. You have that person on your sholdder or in that back of your head is like, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough sculptor. I'm not a good enough artist. I can't sculpt that well, paint that well, as say an artist, this artist, and that artist. Well, all of them started out somewhere too, where they were saying the same thing, looking at someone else and saying, I'll never get that good. And then they are that good now. And you got to be willing to step back from your work, no matter what it is you do, and see that, okay, I see progression. I see movement. I see me going in the right location, the right places. I'm recognizing things now that I didn't recognize before, maybe a year ago or even 2 years ago. If you can see that in your work, then you're going in the right direction.
Yeah,
and that's what you have to strive for, and that's what you have to keep doing. And it's the time. And what kind of effort are you putting?
Too. It's like you can't. There's no way to force yourself to put that kind of work in unless you love doing it, and that's what I think. When people really realize that's what they're meant to be doing, it doesn't. A lot of these pros probably don't even realize all the time they've put in because it didn't feel like work to them. It's just you're obsessed with this one thing.
Dedicated to that.
It's like when I was in junior high, I spent probably God knows how many hours locked in my room playing a guitar, and I just didn't feel like work to me. I was obsessed with doing it. That's a benefit to have, to realize what you really love and then go after it.
That was the thing. I mean, for me, I had a unique case of when I was introduced to ZBrush. It was in high school, and I was doing some classes in regular school. Then I'd go to the community college, and I'd learn ZBrush from this crazy guy in the back corner. Kyle knows the guy's name, Jason Welsh. He does a lot of tutorials online, but he was sort of my mentor in introducing me to 3D in general. But I spent a couple years messing. He helped me build a computer, and I was using Maya and ZBrush, and just getting used to what it was like to build stuff digitally. And then those 2 years, though, if you looked at some of the stuff that I was making, it was horrible. But I had no direction. There was no guidance. It was just trying stuff out constantly. But then when I came to LA and I wanted to pursue a career in art and actually learn how to apply these skills, it was like it expanded. It went up tenfold because I had a foundation to build on top of. But without that, when you take those shortcuts, you're gonna fall short eventually.
That's awesome. You had ZBrush and Maya. That's great in high school. I was using
high school.
Yeah,
it was in high school.
I was using Paint. Yeah,
I was a junior in high school.
Paint.
Oh man!
And then I think Photoshop.
I had Photoshop. Yeah,
I think it was only Photoshop 2 at that point. I think when I was in high school.
What was the last few versions before they went to CS?
It stopped at 6.
Okay,
so it went like 6.
What year was that?
I have no idea.
I couldn't even tell.
I think
I
was on 5 or 6 or 4. I don't know. Apparently, I have a certification somewhere for Photoshop. I forgot it all.
Yeah, there's Photoshop CS, and they went CS2, then 3, I think, and then maybe 4.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is you're experimenting. For us in this industry, and this is one thing that I think needs to be highlighted too, is the amount of tools that we have to learn, that we are continuing to learn all the time. It's never ending too. So a software is growing constantly. We add new features all the time. There's stuff in ZBrush that a lot of people don't know about because it's so deep, and we continue to try and push it and introduce more things. But those that are still sort of stuck with a few things, if you know those few basic tools, technically speaking, you don't need the newer stuff. Those are just tools that can help you.
It's just options.
Polish and options, exactly. But the foundation is there, and I think that there's that fear that an artist has that I've had, I still do sometimes, where sometimes I'm just afraid to dive into something new because of the time that it takes. And I just want to get to the final result as fast as possible. And to me, I think that's a societal thing where we're, especially in our industry, because it's so fast paced and everybody's, you look at the artwork on ZBrush Central, I remember what it was like when I first started at the company. You compare some of those top row posts to now, not only are we putting up 3 times as much, but the artwork's getting better and better and better because people are just, they're getting quicker.
Yeah, and the community's growing. They don't have to rely on just trial and error. Now somebody else comes up with a trick and they share it. There you go. It's
right.
YouTube videos, podcasts.
Well, exactly. Podcasts. ZBrush podcast.
But that's what the importance of the community is. I mean, like you said, ZBrush is almost infinite, and a lot of professional grade programs are. You could go so deep, you'll never find your way out.
Right.
But that's all just there to help you find your niche and find your workflow. And it's there to cater towards different styles of working, really.
Exactly.
You know, and the trick is to just find the style that works for you. And some people prefer to do things the long way or the hard way, or they didn't know there was another way. Didn't we have a couple presenters this year that I want to say it was Thomas Whittlebach that you said, yeah, you can just do this. And he's like, what? Was it him?
I don't remember.
There was some trick where you just like revolutionized.
Well, which happens, it happens all the time because, you know, you use what works. You use what works and you stick
and
to
if
that.
It works,
And if you can continue to make artwork that way, there's no need for you to expand beyond that. But then, you know, you go to a thing like the Summit and you see some of these artists and they go up there and they demo something and Paul's like, hey, you could also do it this way.
Yeah.
He's
did
like,
that a
oh
couple
my
times
gosh,
this year.
I didn't know
I'm
you
the
could do
jerk.
that. But that kind of stuff I think helps.
He did write the book.
Yep. Yep, that's right.
A book. yes.
ZBrush tips and
Several
tricks. Let's plug Paul's book.
Let's plug it. Is it still in print?
There we go. Even these professionals, they can still pick up tricks and pick
Absolutely.
up new
Well,
things. Like, that's the
we
whole
are
point
all.
of that.
That's the thing is we're all students forever in the art world. We are continuing to learn and grow and expand on things and especially for us, we're doing all kinds of different things. Like you think about classical artists, painters, sculptors, they kind of just focused on their, you know, unless the ones that kind of did both. But it was for us, we have more options and it's faster. So we're it's almost, again, I go back to the societal thing where we're kind of pushed to, in our minds, we subconsciously, I think we need to do more always.
Yeah,
because you see,
it's like now
all
that you
these
do
people.
everything on a computer, it's again, I'll compare it like filmmaking, music making, whatever it is. You practically have a full blown studio with every tool that ever existed right there at your disposal, and it's all on you to create the art.
Mm-hmm.
It can be overwhelming at times. I'll find myself getting hung up on technical things and polishing something, and tweaking it and turning knobs until I forgot what I was creating in the first place. So it's a balance. I think you got to find a way to keep the essence of the art and the creativity going without getting caught up with all the tools and everything.
Right.
You know, you really got to find your own path.
I don't know about you guys, but I think it's important to not allow yourself to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of compartmentalize. If you're learning something new, a new method of sculpting, you're studying anatomy, doing that one thing to really focus on it instead of kind of bouncing around all over the place. As a beginner, I think that's really important because you're allowing yourself to test and focus and hone those skills that you'll be able to take later. But skipping over those things or kind of just brushing over it and covering it up with others, you end up having a harder time grasping that concept.
Yeah, it creates a steeper hill to climb. I mean, you guys are both teachers. What do you think about the idea of, like, if somebody wants to become a sculptor, should they learn with a ball of clay before they even pick up the computer? You think that's a good way to go?
I've gone in so many different directions. When I first started teaching ZBrush, for me, I sort of had this idea where I wanted to do what Paul did, where I would just go through all of the software and I'd show you all the different possibilities. But I found that by doing so, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about spreading yourself too thin. You're not kind of grasping how to apply that one feature to something. So since then, I've taken clay sculpting classes and I've kind of gone back to the basics and sort of learned the hard way of what it was like before you had something like ZBrush to sculpt with. And I found that now it's sort of a combination of starting with just basic shapes, you know, just a ball of clay, learning how to manipulate the mesh and use a few different brushes to pull and push and shape something around, but sculpting it by hand. You kind of train your hand to, become more adjusted to sculpture if you've never done it before. And I get students that have never touched sculpture. They're all painters or drawers or Photoshop people.
Yeah,
or
sculpture, it's a tough medium to get used
to.
It is.
It's
like, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, a lot of people want to jump to the details and make it look polished, but I learned real quickly, it's like the silhouette and the overall basic form is the more important thing.
Yeah, absolutely
we have
is.
very basic sculpts sometimes. You'll see something that's like a cartoon character or a Disney character or something that's like on the surface, it's simplistic, but it's executed with great technique.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know what you think, Paul, but for me, I kind of like to, if I'm teaching ZBrush and if they're a new sculptor, I kind of like to throw them out in the deep end and force them to just try stuff. Really just fail first, and then we talk about methods of how to fix it, how to polish it up, better ways of cleaning up your mesh or visualizing just shapes before you get to something like sitting behind you, like all crazy belts and panels and clothes and folds and clothes and skin wrinkles. It's, that you sort of see that end picture and that kind of jumble scrambles your brain because you're like, how do I get to that?
Yeah. Well, that's a part of an institution or education system is failing is learning. If you're going to fail, then you're going to learn the right way to do it or the right approach to have it. And then your instructor there is to guide you and help you through the correct approach. So the most important part of any sculpting, I think, for me is the first 20%. If you land that and you're landing the correct, like Mike's saying, the correct silhouette or proportions, everything else will fall into place.
Right.
The worst thing that I see is, like, say, when students are trying to make a muscular person, they think just grabbing like an inflate brush or a clay ball and just start building really big biceps, and then he's going to look muscular. It's not going to look muscular. It's going to look like he's bloated Michelin Man. So if you just put the muscle where it belongs, it will look muscular, and as long as the other muscles are going in the right location. But forget all that. Unless you've at first at least established the correct structure underneath, the correct proportions, and all the way down to like a bone. It means nothing if you take the bones out of any animal living thing. It's just a pile of mush, muscle. There's no movement. So that structure base is important for any artist, and making sure you establish that. And so that's the hardest thing that I have with any student these days is. They maybe have never even used 3D. Then they maybe even have used a Wacom tablet or Cintiq, and they can't even wrap their head around that.
That is another hurdle.
And you get that even with the amazing clay artists that are so used to doing something in clay or stone or whatever it might be. And they're like, what is this silly pen tablet thing that I got to even wrap my head around? And they're not even possibly computer literate for that matter. And now they got to also learn that on top of a program, on top of the correct way to sculpt. So for me, it's a thing of, it's like a pot that I'm spinning is trying to figure out, okay, what of my students kind of have a grasp of at least technical part of it, and what part of them have a grasp of the artistic part, and how do I get those both to come together for every student so that they can go to the next step and start creating stuff that they're very excited about and they love, and then they're having fun doing it. It's hard when, as an instructor, I see certain students are frustrated because they can't accomplish what's in their head or where they're going, and it's something that's blocking that to get to that stage. And almost every time, I can take their sculpt and go all the way back to the beginning. I go, well, here's where you messed up. Your arms are not the correct length, and now you're sitting here on the chest trying to figure out why doesn't my chest look right, and it doesn't look right because your arms aren't right. That's really the reason why. Like, I'll never forget one of my former students. I don't even know how long ago it was now, maybe 6 years ago, maybe 5. He was super excited to show me this Predator he made, and he was like, Paul, you got to check this out. So I walked up to the computer, I checked out his Predator. It was awesome. It looked great. It was beautiful to the T. He was very excited that he matched even the coloring to the movie version, the Predator, like the original Predator. So I was like, it looks amazing. It looks fantastic. But the first 2 seconds I looked at it, I said, child Predator.
Proportions were just completely
He had a massive head and a little body. And I looked at him and go, look, this is amazing. I can see you put the effort in, the work in. It totally looks a lot like the movie, but it looks like a child Predator. And then he sat back, looked at me, goes, it was like, I thought he was going to cry. He was like, you're right. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, I don't know how to fix it now. Oh my God, how am I going to fix this?
You're like, breathe. It's not that hard.
It's not how we can fix it, but I need you now to recognize that. And you need to recognize that happened, not in the hour 400. It happened in the first 2 hours of you sculpting is when that mistake
blackout
happened.
Phase.
So yeah, you got to go back to that beginning, those first couple hours and times. And you're throwing your kids to the fire, but I do too. And I do certain things where I don't show them a feature on purpose early. And I make them have a little bit of struggle and try and figure out. And then I'm like, well, hey, let's solve all your problem now by showing you this feature. And then now they can relate that feature to a problem. And then they learn, oh, next time I'm just going to use this feature then, and I don't have that problem anymore. It's a tough balance. I don't want them to dangle so much that they get so frustrated, but I want them to at least have some kind of experience of going back to what you're all talking about to become a very strong sculptor. you got to go through some, learning curve.
There's a wall you have to push through.
Wall you got to push through.
And I think it's just the fear. It's the fear of, because you set those rules, you're like, well, you need to get your foundation right.
It's that artist on your shoulder, fear that you're not going to be as good as the artist.
Exactly.
Like.
But the best thing you could do, the best thing to help yourself is to just try it and not be afraid of, if it doesn't look good, you can do another one. That's the best thing about digital sculptures. You can get it done pretty quick. Right. And one thing that I found,
keep buying armature and clay.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And piping.
And you just start fresh. And each time you do it, the next one gets better. And one of the best results I've had in classes, I like to do at the beginning of every class, I do a speed sculpt and I set a time, 10, 15 minutes max. And I'll sort of do what you're saying, where we all pick different styles, different types of characters, but each speed sculpt, I'll let them work on it. And then if it's something where they have to pull out, say like an elephant tusk or some interesting shapes, I only show the move brush, clay buildup, and standard. And you're just using those brushes. But the goal is to get the form and silhouette there in that first 10 or 15 minutes. And I don't expect anybody to get to details. And then at the end, I say, okay, who was able to pull out the horns, okay, or the nose? And if they had trouble with that, which, at the beginning stages they do, then I go and show them, say, snake hook or masking with transpose or other things that they could use on the next one. And then each time it's sort of like, here's a test, figure out how, do it the best way that you can with the stuff I've showed you. And then afterwards, I'll show you an easier way to do it. And then it's like, oh, I could have used that, and I'll use that for the next one. So you kind of build on top of it with just a few extra little, features or tweaks. And people get that. They understand it. But if you just show them, okay, this is the snake hook, and you can sort of pull this out and pull this out, there's no real visual application. So
you're not linking it. If you do that, you're not linking the feature to this benefit or the technique that you'd want to use.
Right.
It's just points I wish I lived in the Renaissance days, because the way they did it, you went and studied under Michelangelo or Raphael, but you weren't studying for like months. You were there for years, like 5, 6, 8, 7 years before you branched off and started really trying to get your own commissions to sculpt or paint. Yeah. And I still think that's valuable, and that's kind of the way I teach. I'm kind of like, look, I'm here for you to whatever knowledge I've gained over the years, pick me, go at it, and ask me, and maybe I'll be able to share or point you in a direction that maybe where your passion lies.
You've always been so good about being making yourself available to people.
Paul
for information.
was your teacher at one point,
yeah,
wasn't he?
Paul was, and I,
yes.
and yeah. like I was saying earlier, I spent a few years of just kind of wandering out in the desert of ZBrush and was just, I want to make stuff, and I would just try stuff out. But there was a key component that I was missing, and that was the guidance to sort of properly use the right features to make something. And with Paul's class, Paul went through, luckily for me, and this isn't for everybody because I sort of had a jump start. I already knew a lot. I just needed somebody to point me in the right direction. And with Paul's class, you went through so much of ZBrush that I didn't even know existed.
At that time,
and it was 3.1. So it was a long time ago.
It was a lot smaller program.
Absolutely. And we didn't have Dynamesh. Things were totally different then. But again, it goes back to the basics, man. It was just learning how to control your mesh at low subdivisions, high subdivisions, which brushes to use. And that's when you start to say, okay, I want to modify this brush a little bit, or I want access to change this a tiny bit. Especially I see it in the environment artist community. Those guys are using more brushes because they need more options, more variation, more insert brushes for rocks and greeble and all kinds of things, using custom alphas. That's when you start to expand on it. But just from a base, if you're thinking about what we've been talking about is the form and silhouette, that doesn't require a lot of, extra usage of brushes. It's just being able to get out of your mind's eye and really see it for what it is.
You see that in hard surface too. You do have to have a collection of brushes or make an insert mesh brushes with multiple pieces on it, because when you're creating something hard surface, you can I want a screw, but then there could be 30 different types of screws that you could choose to put on that particular model.
Right.
So you're right. On an organic, if I'm doing an organic, whether it be a human or a creature, it's pretty much I'm trying to do a structural base, then do some maybe muscles, now start putting in eyes, a mouth. It's all the same. And as far as using those type of brushes. But then now when you're gearing towards, like you're saying, environment people, yeah, one day they're working on doing like a table and chairs that we're sitting on right now, and then tomorrow they're doing like a cliff with a waterfall running
something
down it.
completely different. Might be more organic or more hard edged, or and I think that it's the best thing that you can take from when you watch these pros. We've said it multiple times, we're sort of being the dead horse here, but there is the foundation and form is consistent through everything, but the way that you apply the rest of it from there is kind of, there's infinite options in ZBrush, and you watch all these people.
This is why we do the summit, though. This is why anything an environment artist do, you can actually take now and interpret and put it into your organic character creature
and develop your own style,
vice versa. This is part of the reason why we do the summit, is to show people, look, even though this person's doing something completely different, that doesn't mean the techniques that they're doing and sculpturally what they're doing, you can't work in what you're doing with your work. So, and that's what I hope people see that is coming out of the summit, and why people are excited to be here and watch.
Absolutely.
So, I want to continue. We want to continue growing it for sure.
Oh, we do for sure. And I do want to get to asking you guys what you guys sort of think the summit's going to turn into, but kind of going back to the Comic-Con. I hope so. The sculpt off is I think my favorite part of the summit, and it's a separate event it's a part of the summit, but it happens sort of parallel to the presentations, and that is a combination of also pros in each of their industries, but you get to watch them just without any sort of fluff or speaking. It's just watching them work and watching sort of them sort of problem solve and figure out in a short amount of time. And you for people that are intermediate or they feel comfortable with sculpting, watching those people will skyrocket your skills, because you can sort of piecemeal how this guy makes one thing or how this girl puts something together, and sort of develop your own method. Whereas, because everybody's kind of like, well, can you just show me how do I make this? It's like, well, I can show you can make it this way. You could also make it this way. You can make it this way. There's options that you have.
Some people, like you're saying, if you're already like kind of have an idea what you're doing, that's the fastest way to learn, is just see, people who know how to do it right, and just observe that. I think, again, it transcends mediums. Like, I spend hours online watching record producers, doing their thing. Yeah. Just twiddling knobs behind a computer, and it's some of the most valuable content out there. I mean, people pay money to see this stuff. And
it's invaluable. It's an invaluable resource if you're using it for the way it's meant. You should. Just being able to watch just as an observer, and really try and take as much of it as you can. It goes such a long way.
Yeah, and this is how people kind of break out of their own habits. It's like you were saying, a professional who's at the top of his game could be using like the wrong tool or doing something the hard way, and it's because they've just been in their own space. They learned their own way. They didn't have anything else to observe. Now we have all these things that you can trade secrets and watch different people develop different ideas, and maybe use a tool in a way that it wasn't intended, which is probably one of the most exciting things.
It's one of my favorite things to watch, is you see somebody use it,
abuse something, and it creates this amazing result.
I think for us, that's one of the best things about the summit for us we are an eclectic group of artists, the people that do all kinds of things, and we need that inspiration too. As developers, making something that's used, you watch somebody use a tool a certain way, maybe we don't realize it at first, but you might see, a feature that can expand or turn into something different by watching the artist community and how they see it. Because when you make it, when you're in development working on features, you can only sort of put yourself in other people's shoes so much. You don't know for sure how it's going to be used until you put it in the hands of the community and just let them run with it and let them use it and see what comes out of it. Like insert brushes, when we had that was ZBrush 4R4, when we introduced insert mesh.
That sounds about right. Maybe 4R3.
So hard to keep track because there's so many.
Write a book.
It's 4 years old now.
They just start rolling in together, each version, but that was a big one for me, because you saw just all kinds of crazy things being put together and kit bashed together, and you could see the excitement, and it's sort of a renaissance of just, you can kind of just make it the way that you want it, just understanding a few basic principles.
Yeah, as you're developing, you have ideas on what you want to do and where you want it to go. And then since we're all artists, we use it, and then we start finding what's working, what's not working. And then when we're beta testing, we're looking at what the testers are doing with the features and growing it and changing it with as the testers are using it as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you get it out to the community, there's always a couple artists or a couple people that take it and a feature and use it a completely different way that maybe we or any of the testers never even thought of.
Right.
It's really cool to be able to see that someone that's thinking outside the box or thinking differently on how to use something, and it's really cool to see that.
That's the most inspiring thing for me is when you see people take something that we didn't intend it to be and just not be afraid to try and do something different with it or use it for something else, and then it's like you get a feedback from that because you see somebody using a tool in their own way, and they're just kind of just designing. It's very freeing.
It's an exploration of you're exploring what you can do with something, and I think that's part of art. A lot of artists, painters and stuff, they didn't just pick up a brush and say, "I'm an amazing painter. I'm done." They learned some techniques. They learned what techniques worked for them, what techniques didn't work for them, and they would paint nonstop.
Right.
So it's the same thing. We put out features. They're almost like that. You're like, okay, what are you going to do, and how are you going to use and apply this feature to what you're trying to create?
Absolutely.
Within the application.
Yep. Yeah. It's amazing for us that this is the third year now that we've done this, and I think we have. We don't know for sure where it's going to go. As we lead up to the summit every year, it's a lot of work. Especially this year, we're developing 2 versions.
Pure chaos.
It is, but it's chaos in a creative sense where a lot of great things do.
Well,
come
we did
from
more
that.
this year too. We did a scavenger hunt. Kyle put together a scavenger hunt. Melissa put together an augmented reality gallery. Besides just having a gallery,
which was incredible.
On that was awesome.
Yeah.
It's too bad the App Store kind of.
Yeah. Well, but then
we got it up and running at the end.
You got on the App Store?
I got it on the App Store. I had it on my iPhone.
Right. So this is something we can continue, obviously, to keep improving and pushing. And we're always trying to think of different things. I would love to have kind of like a sculpt tent, right? Bring in some really big names and they just sit there and sculpt, whether it be in clay or they be in marble or stone, because it's all relevant and it's all related.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
I wanted to do it this year, but
do we have the budget for this?
Yeah,
now
I almost did it. We almost did it this year, but I pulled the reins on it. I'm like, no, let's not do that one this year. We're trying to add the augmented reality and the scavenger hunt already this year. The workshops sell out every year. It's amazing to see that.
The workshops are phenomenal. I mean, the feedback
year round.
The feedback we get from the people that sit in those workshops, as well as the people that run them, there's so much positive feedback, and it's one of those things where you want to, expand your skills. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Sit down for a weekend with a pro and have them show you how to do these things.
You know what was really telling?
I know, cool right? About that is
me too.
A lot of those guys running the workshops aren't teachers, so they get a chance for the first time to connect to the community and teach somebody something and get feedback themselves. So I think everybody's learning in there.
Yep.
You know what was a telling point for this year's for me was the sponsors that were here on site and set up tables. All of them came to me and said, "I'm blown away of how much fun I'm having."
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
It was way more than I thought what it was going to be. They're so used to working booths in the middle of a convention hall and just standing around and talking, but they felt it was more of like an atmosphere and excitement, and that went because of the people that were here on site were just engulfed in what was going on in the presentations. They were all mingling, connecting. There comes that
connecting, and what else?
It all comes together, guys. It's all coming together now. So that was a great sign for people that have never even used the application, have no idea what it is. Possibly they're trying to get it and get to artists like what we have, and just learning even about what these artists do in general. Like they're flying blind. Someone coming to
I think it's kind of cool. It kind of speaks to like we're in a point in time now where it's still a niche.
Yeah, I think you could say both
thing where like
niche. Nietzsche. I'm gonna go with Nietzsche.
As a Canadian, I say niche. I don't know what that means, but
you
that's
also
what I
it just means you pronounce everything wrong.
Louis Tucci, Nissan.
What else?
I don't say Nissan like
Nissan.
Louis Tucci, Canadian. But don't do that.
What I was trying to say,
do yourself a favor, get yourself a Nissan.
Is that everybody that comes here is heavily invested in the the discipline and the art, and we're not at a level yet where there's any fluff. Nobody's coming here just to cosplay or just get a picture with a celebrity, because we don't have that many yet. But it's like, everybody that's here.
We will. I think
have the Red Bull girls.
We did have Red Bull.
Rick Baker. We had Neville.
And those are giants in our industry. Yeah. And for me personally, I do want to ask you guys this question, but where do you guys see the summit heading from here? Because for me, now that we've done 3 of these things, we've really got it honed in.
I think we should start doing it in Hawaii.
Maybe new locations would be an option. I think that I see it to be what you're saying about the booths and having a physical presence of all different, types of companies and sponsors here.
Are you putting a call out?
I'm putting a call out. I'm trying to push for us to and we need help from you guys in the community too to
put the call out.
With a kazoo sound. But
that was the conch.
The conch. I want it to be bigger. I think we all want it to be bigger.
I'd love to go convention size.
We want to go bigger, and we want to have
first Staples
Center.
Oh, that would be pretty awesome.
I mean, hopes and dreams. We're not making any promises here.
Happen.
Just making sure that's known. But I think we're going to continue to experiment with ideas for what this will be.
Yeah.
And each year we've kind of introduced something new. And
we try a little experimentation. We're lucky enough that the boss lets us get away with a lot. I mean, this podcast is an experiment, and we did some new social media stuff. We're trying to get people involved. Any way we can. We got the Twitch channel coming up. By the way, shout out for that.
Yeah.
We are receiving all of your applications for those of you who want to join us.
I think that's become Kingsley's baby. Is that Kingsley's baby now?
That's running the show on the Twitch.
As he's saying no behind
like,
and closed door, no, I don't want any responsibility. Kingsley, we'll say the computers worked fine, so you did good at the summit.
What would you say you do here?
Just a little bit of everything.
Kingsley's the guy in the old Tom Green show, just standing in the back of the window with the cup and just laughing every once in a while. He's recording now. Now instead of a mug, he's actually doing the record. Yeah, most people probably don't know it or remember it. I don't remember his buddy's name.
I don't either.
But he would just sit back.
But I remember the laughing guy.
Everything Tom Green would say.
Everybody laughs at what Tom Cruise does.
So
I feel like not too long ago that was me in the back behind the camera just laughing and didn't know what to say.
I mean, we did have a 1.0 version of this show that no one knows about.
No, well, I mean, we experimented with all different kinds before. This was even before the summit. We were trying to come up with a channel, like a ZBrush channel, and have stuff like this, but ultimately it was too much to manage, and we needed to sort of break it down into a simpler way. But
I think we found our platform. This seems to work.
I think so. I mean, really, this whole new format is about creating a way for people to, find new tips and tricks, and also a form of entertainment, because we, as CG artists, we don't have many places to go where we can just kind of talk to each other.
Drust is entertaining on camera. He's very entertaining on camera.
Somehow we've done all this.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. And unfortunately for us, I mean,
Drust is in a hurricane right now. Is that?
No, that's done.
Is it over now?
No, that's done.
I saw some pretty gnarly Instagram videos that he was posting.
Yeah.
I think the Slayer American flag guy was actually out in front of his house, or was he a Florida man?
I don't know.
Probably Florida man. Shout out Florida man.
That was great. You're talking about the guy that was in the middle of the street with the flag, and he's
playing Slayer.
Yes. I was in tears watching that video. It's so funny.
Most American thing I've seen on
But I don't know. Where do you guys see the summit heading this next year?
Well, this next year obviously is not going convention center size, but that's the ultimate
Too ambitious.
goal.
I don't know, man. If we get enough community comments, people screaming, "We want convention center, we want Comic-Con," I don't know. Might turn into a thing.
We have the Burbank Convention Center is probably where I would start, probably because it's a smaller convention center.
That's a good,
and it's still
spot.
homey. And it's right across from the Burbank Airport. But
it feels like home to me.
I see us definitely pushing the element, continue to grow, take feedback from everybody that's been here, take feedback from our artists that we invite in, seeing what we can do. Add another day. We might be, maybe starting the summit off a little different next year, I think. Would be maybe something we do. A little radio wink is happening right now.
Winking around the room.
Yeah. So, we're fresh off it, and I think as a group or everyone that was involved here, like, can we just pause on what maybe next?
We need a decompression to sort of absorb everything in. It's been nuts. Like,
but I can see it growing. I can see us getting bigger. I can see us, like I said, doing a couple more things that we can now try and see if we can make happen for next year's summit. I would like to see the turnout to continue to grow of people physically being here, because that's the only way we're going to go to that if we want a convention size. If we're not getting people to physically show up,
right,
then there's no point in expanding the location itself.
Yeah. And that keeps us on our toes. We got to come up with incentive for them to be. I mean, there's plenty of it already, but the more people get to interact with us.
Well, you get to meet Joseph Drust, number one.
You get to hang out with Drust.
Joseph
Drust.
J Drust.
I mean, some people pay for that.
Oh, well, I always pay for it. I'll tell you that. and Joseph I Drust. Okay, that's all I have to say. I've coined it. His brother uses it.
Joseph
go for it. Well, that's also the thing of being physically here. You get to meet the entire, not the entire, but a big chunk of the Pixologic staff.
This year we had quite a bit.
You can meet the founders of the software.
International.
Yeah.
Well, how often do you get to say that? You get to go to an event and meet the founder?
I can't think of. I can think of a couple times where I've met a founder or a creator.
Yeah, but it's rare. It's rare.
It's super rare.
And to meet one that's so ingrained and in tune with it as well. He watches all the presentations. He's always there, sort of just spectating, just seeing how everybody is,
He who
will remain nameless behind the giant green tarp. Running the show with the levers. curtain. He's not behind a tarp. We got a bigger budget than that.
We rented it.
It's shortcomings. We got a tarp. But it's a very special event for us, and I think it's one of those things that since we started doing it, it has helped us grow.
Yeah, it gets better and better. Honestly, without being cheesy, it was almost emotional when this thing came to an end this year. We were on chat. Me and a couple others were monitoring Twitch. And I saw people making friends in there. People that had never seen each other before, like, hey, what's up, man? And they were coming in all 3 days.
And Paul keeps going back to the pillars.
It's working. It's really working.
But that's awesome to hear.
It was cool. I mean, you had some people, I couldn't tell if they were joking or not, but they're like, this is all I look forward to all year. Now it's over.
Well, I think that's what I want. I want that to continue.
You do? You want people to be
I want people to make friends. I want people to say, I look forward to this. This is the most important thing in my life, and this is the only thing that I'm going to do in the rest of my life. I really wanted to grow that. I really want, because when you start getting also too big, we want to make sure, and this is also why we are slowly growing it. Yeah. We want to make sure everything's awesome and people experience at everything that we do.
That's right. We don't want to go too big where we can't manage it, but it does have to be, because it's a lot of work to do all this stuff.
But I think we're
scheduling, coordinating with.
Stretch to the limit here.
I agree with Michael about it being it's when you see the end of it and you're passionate, but I think that comes from because then you just see all the work that everyone put into it, whether it be the Pixologic staff, the presenters, the sculpt off people. You see that, wow, all that work, people are really digging in.
And it makes it meaningful. When you get thanks like that, it proves, for one, it's not just a big sales device. It's not.
No, that's not the point of it.
Yeah, it's not at all. It's so much more about the community, and the truth in that is shown when the community itself says so. And they feel that way. And they basically are the ones who informed me that was the general vibe around there. While we're running around with our heads cut off, just trying to hold the thing together.
We
need to do to know.
I just had an idea for the summer next. We need to make passes. It's called the significant other pass, because I know everybody that goes to the summit, myself
has
included,
a significant other.
May have a significant other.
Doesn't know where we are.
What you say, days. Don't know where are you for the next 3 days, 4 days. I'm out. I'm hooked on my computer, man. Keyboard, mouse, ready to go.
I couldn't take phone calls.
Yeah. So, but
it takes
awesome.
your whole weekend. Yeah. You're dedicated to it, and when we do the summit.
What 3 weeks of
then you're not counting the prep beforehand.
It's leading up to, and then Friday's here. We get a week. Summit.
Nope, exactly.
Monday meeting.
Yep. Well, and then
But
then we
it's
have
all out of
company
love.
meetings afterwards, and we all sort of get together and talk about what works and what doesn't work, and
That's right,
the best
people.
parts about it. It's it's an ongoing thing. It never ends, really. It's just all year round. We're thinking about.
It's cool that we get to be that hands on with it. I think literally the next morning, 9:30 a.m. in here at this table, saying what went well, what do we need to fix, what do we need to make better, and we listen to everything everybody says. By the way.
Yeah, we do.
I record
Send all
the
your
chat.
feedback to Solomon Blair.
Please, God, do not send me any feedback. You can send it to.
No.
Just bleep that out.
Yeah, you're gonna need them.
Just call 323-555.
5555555.
Just call the fax machine.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess as we're wrapping this up, do you guys? Is there anything you guys have been inspired to create since we've sort of finished? We're about a week out of the finish of it, and the dust is settled.
I want to do my project that's been in my head for probably 8 years. That my wife keeps hitting me in the back of the head and like, "When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it?" But it goes to I make excuses for myself and say I don't have the time.
Yeah,
Who does?
Teaching, teaching a lot, and then working here as well. But you gotta make that time. You gotta find. We have time. You just have to figure out in your schedule where you could put time aside.
Yeah, I think the
to
challenge
do
is
it.
reminding yourself how much
Yeah.
you love it and how much
Yeah.
it actually makes you happy.
Right.
It's easy. It's easy to forget.
So just seeing what people were doing and seeing projects, that are being put together, I'm like, in my head, that one project's always sitting there that I just need to get going on and
What is
just
this
shut
project?
up and do it.
top secret.
You've really,
Paul's chessboard.
you've really built this up.
Chessboard.
Oh,
Did the chessboard die?
Yeah, no, that's
Still-
the
still in-
chessboard. It's the chessboard based upon Shawshank Redemption. So
Yeah, you've been
and
talking
I just
about
gave
that
my
one for a
idea
while.
away to everybody now.
If
So
anyone
thanks, guys.
steals it, now we know where they.
You didn't
got
have
it.
to say it. Yeah, we can also.
No, it'll be easy to track them down. We'll know exactly.
Now you're forced to do it because now you got to beat everybody to the punch before somebody else does it.
So, but I the reason why I want to do something like that is I'll have to study likenesses really hard and really figure out how to do a likeness really well. And by the end of the project, I'm hoping that I would be pretty good at doing likenesses.
I've heard you can survive close to 3 days with no sleep.
Done
Put it to the test.
I've done it. I've
Maybe
done
more.
it. I've done it for
3
a
days
really
is
What's
a
the world
lot.
record?
I don't know.
I have no
That's
idea.
got to be like. Yeah, I'm sure because the insomniacs go for like months though, don't they?
Well, I don't think insomnia means like absolutely no sleep. It's just really bad.
Limited-
So,
limited sleep.
And it's like Edward Norton says: you're never fully awake and you're never really asleep.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that's
Well,
kind of
because your
true.
mind's always going and dreaming. And you
Yeah.
don't remember the
Copy
dream.
of a copy of a copy.
Yeah, for me, after watching the summit, it doesn't have to be any particular style. The things that I've been afraid to do or sort of don't want to invest the time in, hard surface work is something that I wanted to do. And we spend so much time preparing for the summit. I'm at my desk 7 days a week sometimes. Sometimes I just need to get away from everything for a little bit from Kyle. But, and I got a little sick from not much sleep. So I crashed last Friday and
I thought you were saying you cried.
I cried a little. There's some tears.
was in fetal position.
But I got away. I got out and I went to. I did some hiking, camping in Zion, and I was inspired by some of the presenters. They were taking reference, doing some trips and just taking photo reference of, rock formations and trees and foliage, and so I was out taking photos. And I want to do. I know Druss has been doing a ton of experimental environment pieces on ZBrush Central.
Dude, how about a thing for Keyshot, man? You could take some photos and create a render.
Yeah, well, in doing HDRIs and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff too. But for me, I want to start to, experiment with environments using array mesh, using nano mesh, different techniques. Which we have awesome tutorials just on basics in Z Classroom that Druss has already done. But that's just stuff that I see every day that would be fun for me. It makes me want to do those things. So those are a couple that I want to give a try. Once we find some time in between development and work.
What about Kyle?
What about you, Kyle?
Kyle, what do you want to do with your life?
I was just talking to you about how I want to get into some mold making stuff that I was.
Yeah.
I want to experiment with some phone case.
Oh, that
things.
reminds me too. I started a project for my girlfriend. I was going to do pizza popsicles.
Oh, yeah.
So
we
like
talked about that.
making mold. I want to make a mold out of the pizza pops and make like a little holder for it. So I sculpted all this stuff out, but now I have to get into the mold making, which
Yeah.
Wait, you said that way too casually. What is a pizza pop?
So like,
Please
You know
explain.
how there's like the ongoing trend of the internet where just like pizza is funny and cool. Like people just post pizza emojis
No.
Oh, you guys get with the times.
Are you
man.
on Snapchat?
I feel like that's dying. Maybe that's even going
Explain
out.
to the listeners.
I mean,
For anybody
If you-
over the age of 25,
if
please
you know,
explain.
you know. If you don't, you don't. It's just like pizza's just like a running sort of ongoing
Pizza
joke.
is hot right now.
Yeah,
That's what
pizza's
you're
so
saying.
hot right now.
okay.
Pizza, but so like I wanted to play around with making a pizza shaped popsicle. So like making a case basically where you can freeze it, and it when you take it out, you guys have seen the there's like a Death Star ice cube you can make. And
Yeah, I've got one.
All kinds of
gaming
I
ones
have
of
that
those.
as well.
Yeah, okay. So just the same concept basically. But then you have to get into I still have to figure out what kind of plastics I can use that aren't going to kill you. You know, if you're eating
All
a
of them.
popsicle, all of it. Kyle recommended maybe a silicone, so that's my next big project. I think I want
I
to
heard
finish
that
up.
totally kills you though.
Silicone?
Yeah.
Interesting.
If it blows up in your chest,
Oh,
you
well.
got a problem.
Well, that's like if you have an implant, right? I mean, they're not eating the mold.
Yeah.
the mold
Right.
itself. It's the thing that's inside of it. But anyways, you know, that's definitely
Just popsicle shaped pizza.
exactly.
No,
Yep.
it's pizza-shaped popsicles.
Yeah,
dude.
in
You're
reverse
not
of
paying
that.
any attention right now.
Either way you want to interpret it, that's
I thought
what
it was
is.
going to be pizza-flavored popsicles. I don't know how.
No,
you
I don't know
even
how
do
that's
that.
possible.
Yeah.
I would have to go into a lab and start playing
That
around with
would
mixtures of
Put Pringles out of work, dude. They just
So
make
you can have
pizza
different toppings. Like this is the pepperoni one.
Well, that's the thing.
The cheese one.
Yeah, she doesn't like a lot of toppings, so I got to do a
Is the
cheese.
I'm
free one
Googling
thinner?
pizza.
I gotta do it.
Is the free one
See,
thinner?
you're playing around with some interesting ideas there
you go.
that I might want to play around with.
broccoli.
But see, I got a supreme right
That's
now.
hot
I got a
now,
cheese.
too.
I got a
There's a song called
pepperoni.
Broccoli.
Is there?
That's right.
It's hot, right?
I'm not
I'll play
surprised
it.
at all.
Kyle knows he's a hip hop head.
This is really escalated.
Let's just
sorry,
talk about pop culture right now. We
we've
got
gone
pizza
down a rabbit
emojis,
hole.
and let's just make it a 3-hour. Let's just Rogan it. Go
Sure.
For it.
All right.
Yeah, so that's what I have on the horizons for me. So,
So the summit has inspired Solomon
to make pizza pops.
Pizza
Pizza
pops.
That's pretty much what I got out
Don't
of it.
steal his idea either.
Don't you steal
we
that
guys are
idea,
sharing some
okay?
hot stuff right now.
Yeah,
dude.
you know what? I'm really regretting this.
We
now.
should shut this thing down right now.
I mean, the goal was just to do it for fun, but who knows? It could turn
Kingsley,
out to
how
be a
about you
little-
in the background? You just want to shake your head? Yes, no, maybe so. He's just shaking his head. Yes.
I wish this was on video.
Yeah. He's going to sculpt. In fact, Kingsley's going to do hard surface.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
going to do what, a
He's got
Gundam?
That's what I heard.
He's going to take a class. He's going to take a hard surfacing class here at Nomen.
Who's
Yes.
teaching hard surface at Nomen?
Oh,
That sounds like some new
I know a guy.
stuff.
I know a guy.
Yes. I am doing that class.
Yeah.
So it'll be the first term. So we'll see.
Hard surface and ZBrush, you say? That
Yes.
sounds like a in-demand topic.
And some 3D printing in there, too?
Yeah, we'll be ending with talking about how you can outsource it for 3D printing. Yeah, for sure. Because why not?
There's a lot of great things on the horizon for hard surface. New booleans were demonstrated at the summit, and you guys will be able
Sure,
to see
the capability of turning in vector
great
meshes.
vector
for
meshes.
undercutting,
I mean, the brush enhancements alone are fantastic. Using vector alphas to
being able
you know,
to continue to
sculpt.
stroke around a model.
And those are just like foundational things that just. I mean, using lazy mouse was great, but now that you have the addition to continue that stroke.
Listen, I'm not
There's
even
so
wearing
many
long sleeves, and I
opportunities.
got more stuff still up my
Oh, I
sleeve. Okay.
could only imagine. Let's keep that a secret until then. Well, as we're wrapping up here, any closing remarks from you guys? Any last words?
Thank you for coming to the event.
Yes, thank you.
Hopefully you're
Thank you for
inspired.
making friends.
You've discovered. And you've connected.
Back to the
You've
pillars.
back
Inspired,
to
connected,
people.
and
Laying down the pillars.
So no, but seriously, like I really hope we see everyone again next year. Please spread the word for those artists you feel would be really wanting to catch something like the ZBrush Summit and take something away from it and learn from it. So we appreciate the audience online coming, and we appreciate the people coming here. Even though I was making the joke about making the significant other certificate, please also make sure you do. Thank your significant others. Hug your kids if you got them. Mm-hmm. We know we're taking time away from your family or the person in your life, and we appreciate that. And in a lot of cases, too, there were a lot of family here and significant others here that were here supporting the artists that were here. So that's great to see. And hopefully we see you all again next year and more people coming out.
And more.
That's all I want to end with.
Convention Center. Yeah, we appreciate you guys for tuning in and having a physical presence and actually coming out to the event. It's such a cliche thing to say, but we wouldn't be anything without the community. That makes us.
Yeah, if no one shows up, there's no point in doing it.
Exactly, and if nobody's using it and nobody's trying things, so without this amazing community, which I think is so special in comparison to others, as far as we're such a caring community. Like I see the love. Like you see all these the artists that contribute in the Sculpt Off. Those guys, they get a chance that some of them are just meeting each other for the first time, and they just know each other through Facebook or social media. But there's like a real friendship there.
There's like this mutual professional respect. It's cool to see them come together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like geek out over each other.
Totally. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know if you guys watch The Get Down, but it's like the graffiti artists when they're meeting each other for the first time. It's like, oh, you do that? It's like, I can't, your work is amazing. Like, no, your work's amazing. No, you're amazing.
To recruit each other over the weekend, man.
Yeah. But, that's what makes this event for us. And like Paul said, we appreciate all of your feedback and all of your contribution to it. And we want to make this better. Every year we want to get better and bigger. So, that comes down to how well the community responds to it. And so the last 3 years have been fantastic, and we look forward to next year as well. So we'll be giving you guys new information on that when the time comes. I do want to point out, this is podcast number 2. We have more podcasts lined up, so stay tuned. We'll be posting more of those. Don't forget about our Twitch Let's Plays. We've done 2 of those so far. We have the one with Bethesda Studios, where we sat with 2 of their amazing artists.
Yeah, Dennis and Lucas, who were here this year. They were killer presentations and workshops.
Absolutely. Those guys were a ton of fun to play Fallout 4 with, and they showed us some really cool stuff.
And they're just cool guys.
And they're just cool guys and talented artists. I mean, all of these artists are so talented. And the same with id Software. So we played Doom with those guys. Another amazing, talented team.
Who were also here and gave an awesome presentation.
And so those you can catch up with us on Twitch, which our Twitch handle is just Pixologic. Correct?
That is correct. Twitch.tv/Pixologic. I don't say / because that's not a real thing. People invented it. It's just a slash.
Yeah, and check that out. You can actually watch the replays of those, and we should be sharing those on other formats here pretty soon. So keep an eye out for those, and we'll be doing a ton more of those as well. So we got
maybe including some of the community to play some games with us.
Yeah,
you never know.
Who knows? We're playing around with all kinds of ideas for that.
We're trying everything, folks.
There are no rules in this case, so we want to come up with some new entertaining and fun things for the community. So stay tuned, and we'll be posting more information on Facebook, all of our social medias, pixologic.com. So thanks all of you guys for listening, and we will catch you guys next time.